The Bee Gees are made up of the three brothers Gibb. Barry is the oldest, while Robin and Maurice are fraternal twins. They were born in England but lived for quite a while in Australia, and that's actually where they got their start. Before they ever went off to the world, they first charted in Australia. Barry refers to Australia as his home country, despite the fact that he's British by ethnicity. Their father was a drummer and their mother was a well-known singer, so the musical genes were already definitely inside of them. In an interview with David Frost, the Bee Gees' parents told a story where they had come home from work one day and their father, the Bee Gees' grandparents, were watching them. Daddy Gibb was like, "Hey, why is the radio still on?" Grandpa Gibb was like, "The radio's not on." "What do you mean by that?" "They're upstairs singing." "Who?" "Your boys." Literally, they were upstairs harmonizing with each other so well that the dad thought the radio was on. That was when they were like 6 or 7 years old. So already, from the moment they started taking breath, they were just musical people, and they were close. They were very close as brothers. So after I sat down and recorded all of that video, I came across another interview with Barry after his two brothers had passed, and I learned some new information. Firstly, that before they started really taking music seriously, they actually were stealing for money. And Barry had to have a come to Jesus moment with all of them together and basically say, look, we can either become musicians and become famous, or we can become criminals and become infamous. They chose to become, obviously, musicians. Spirits Having Flown, the album I'm actually reviewing today, was released in 1979. This is the group's 15th studio album, and it comes just 2 years after Staying Alive, which of course is from the soundtrack to Saturday Night Fever, and then 3 years after their previous studio album, Children of the World. The Bee Gees felt like Saturday Night Fever wasn't a good representation of them and their artistry, despite Saturday Night Fever's success. I listened to the Saturday Night Fever songs, and I noticed that they definitely mixed the vocals entirely differently than Spirits Have Flown. The Bee Gees' true ability to harmonize is very hidden, actually, in those songs. Saturday Night Fever songs definitely hide the vocals more. I almost have to turn up the treble just to hear them as clearly as I do in Spirits Having Flown. The other thing is that Saturday Night Fever is straight up disco and pop, and Spirits Having Flown is much more genre bendy, even though it's definitely more disco leaning. They take a lot from a lot of other genres, much more explorative. They wrote, recorded, and produced this album in 8 months. They got their band together, got a couple of their favorite producers to work with, and they focused on every detail of the album for those 8 months until they felt like they had hits. And they got those hits, by the way. This album did pretty good on the charts. They actually had, I believe it was 6 consecutive songs on the charts, which is crazy. They worked to blend disco, R&B, Euro pop, and dance music. And my personal opinion is that they achieved this goal. I think they did very good. Some think this album was trying to double up on the success of Saturday Night Fever, while others think the quick turnaround between these two sets of songs is a testament to the group's insane work ethic. Let's take a listen and break that down together. Tragedy is the first song on the album, and at first it seems to be about romance, but Genius.com thinks it may be a reference to the relationship between the Gibbs brothers and how they might have been at odds with each other. This song is the main single from the album. In that David Frost interview I mentioned earlier, they also highlighted the recording process of this specific song. There's a moment where there's like a thunderous burst, and this interview implies that thunderous burst was Barry doing like a special vocal like it goes or something like that, and then the engineer adds reverb. And that's just one of the impressive things that they did. The other thing that special shows is how they record the vocals, which all three of them sang together into one microphone, which is mind-blowing to me. I do work in DAWs, and I don't get paid to mix music, but I have done it enough to understand that those three dudes had to have an insane ear to sing together. I can take vocals and I can spend hours mixing them together so that way they sound perfect, but they sound perfect on the record, and they're doing that just straight up into one microphone, and that's difficult. So incredibly impressive, very cool that they were able to get that done. This song is incredibly epic, and I can feel the drama behind the music. It's very very fun to listen to. Too Much Heaven is a song about either happiness, love, or drugs. Depends on how you interpret the lyrics. The slow ballad that really hammers their point hard. This song kind of feels like it's supposed to be slow danced to, like you're supposed to be swaying with it, having your partner right next to you, spit some game into their ear. It's not really a hype disco
do cocaine song.
That's for sure. It features kind of a jarring key change to me. It's not like super abrupt, but it's not the best. You can hear how locked in they are in their vibrato and their falsetto. It's so in sync and perfect, and it's so smooth. Love You Inside Out has a banger of a chorus with lyrics that go, I'm the man who loves you inside and out. I'm not going to put that in the video. It's so crazy and powerful. I sing it every time I hear the song. It's seriously so fun. I wish I could have been there to hear them perform this live, because I just know that like when they finally get to Inside and Out, people just lost their minds. I just know it. And it's very funky. It starts with this sparse funk, and that, drops in and out. And then there's a little disco bridge that has chromatic movement that leads into a pre-chorus that just cuts all the BS. Just drums, bass, and Bee Gees. And that's all you need. DBB. This full arrangement is fantastic. And Reaching Out has an island feeling. It's got some congas. Happy-go-lucky until the very end, and when it drops into a minor chord, and it feels like maybe the lover, because the song's about someone trying to reach out to someone they care about. The end with the minor chord really makes it feel like that pursuit has failed. And this key change is smooth as heck. It only moves a half step up, and that's almost feels like there's a turnaround in their relationship. Like they're like, oh, things are going to start working out now. And then there's the minor chord that says, no, it's not. And so this song has a nice overarching narrative. I think they do a really good job of making the instrumentation match that narrative. Spirits Having Flown is the title song. It also features conga drums, pretty laid back verse section, which is contrasted by a very dramatic chorus section. I love this contrast, because at first when I heard it, I was like not really into it. I don't like the island vibe songs just because they seem cheap sometimes. But this one goes hard, and especially since the chorus talks about hurricanes and stuff like that, and then just back to beach and palm trees. Also, my man Herbie Mann plays the flute on this song, so that's really exciting. Search Find is another banger of a chorus, certified disco arrangement. The bass line goes stupid. The song is mildly toxic, but I think it's meant to be endearing. Saying nothing can stop my love for you is weird, but it's 1979. We are 1 year from cocaine being super normal. Stop, Think Again is my favorite song on all time, and it answers a very important question.
Would you say that you are kinky?
And the answer is yes. As shown by a lyric, pleasure and pain, that's where I lie. This song is a story about heartbreak where one dude loses his lover to another dude. The song is a plea from the first guy to just stop and consider the love that he and his lover have before leaving him. And it doesn't go that way, and he loses the lover at the end of the day. This is my favorite one on the album. This is my favorite song, easily. Like, there's not even competition, and if there was, it wins. I can't explain to you how much I love this song. I sampled it to learn how to sample music the way Jay Dilla did. So it's very important to me as a musician and as a producer, and also just sounds the best in my opinion. The arrangement is fantastic. It's super slow, it's super moody, it's in 6/8, it's dramatic, dynamic. There's just a banger of a bass player. It's got saxophone, horns, strings, all of it doing the most, and I'm in love. It's instrumentals for the last minute 40 of the song, and it's all good. Like, I've already kind of explained the general story. You can hear that story repeated in the instrumental section. That is so lit. I love that so much. I could rave about this song and all the little details forever and ever, but there's more to get to. Living Together has the hardest intro to a song I've ever experienced in my life. I'm pretty sure I've heard it before. I'm pretty sure it's been sampled. Yeah, I couldn't find any samples, but that doesn't mean it doesn't go hard. You should just, if you listen to one song, if you listen to just two songs, it is Stop, Think Again, and Living Together. These songs go crazy. So disco, so fun. I'd walk down the street to this song, and I'd feel like the guy. There's a sharp key change about 3/4 of the way through. Basically, everything kind of cuts out and it goes to just drum and bass. And then things slowly float in and out. And it's just so nice and tasty.
Kinky.
This is a banger of the song that asks why two lovers aren't living together. Nothing else is needed. I'm Satisfied is a song that has, again, that island feel, and it doesn't ask too much of the listener. There's some interesting moments in verse 2, some chord changes that add a little drama. Otherwise, it's, I think, the bottom tier song on this record. Still a very good song. You know, it's not a bad song, but it's the worst one on the record for sure. I feel like it's a little boring. However, even though it's boring, it does aesthetically lead very well into the final song of the record. Until. I think it's wildly ahead of its time sonically. I could hear the song being released in the mid-2010s. It sounds like an intro, but the whole song contains no drums. The synth that plays with the vocals, the solo string layers, there's longing in the song, and it almost sounds like a eulogy. The song is so subdued and restrained compared to the rest of the album, and its strange, sad end. I've spent more time at this moment, I feel like, talking about the song than there is like vocals in the song. Very interesting way to end the album, and again, couldn't be more different, especially from their songs off of the soundtrack for Saturday Night Fever. Again, this is easily my favorite album I have on vinyl. Love its energy, its sonic aesthetic, and its instrumentation. It's so epic, dynamic, and interesting. When I was looking through the album and I was looking at the credits, I saw that Herbie Mann played on there. I mentioned that earlier. He actually played on 2 songs, Spirits Having Flown and I'm Satisfied. And I was just so excited because, you know, that's the first album I reviewed was a Herbie Mann album. By the way, link in the description. And it's just crazy when worlds collide like that. It kind of makes sense. Like, the vibe of those songs very much matched the vibe of Herbie Mann. But also, he didn't add a whole bunch, to be honest. That's why I didn't mention him, because I didn't notice him when I listened to the songs. I try to hear him, especially in Spirits Having Flown. And there's flutes, but I didn't think it was anything super spectacular. Even though I love this album, not everyone felt that this album was one of their greatest works. A Rolling Stone article written in 1979 described the Bee Gees' falsetto singing as piercing, and it was relieving when they went back to their natural range. Now, at first this surprised me, but then I went back and I listened to some of their older albums, and it turns out that the dude was right, that their natural singing voice was in fact not falsetto. And it's very interesting to me because the Bee Gees are known for that high, you know, that falsetto sound. The majority of their music didn't have that. And it wasn't even really their main style until 1976 to 1979. And that's quite literally the years that Spirits Having Flown and Saturday Night Fever were released. And that's pretty much it. Otherwise, they went back to using their normal range, with falsetto sometimes when the song called for it, obviously. When I first read this Rolling Stone article, I thought that author Stephen Holden was just being a hater. But I can see why he felt that falsetto was disingenuous, because of the timing and because of the way sonically these songs sounded very close to Saturday Night Fever. But then he gets to be a little bit intense. He describes the album as childish and the Bee Gees as a group bringing on some kind of like religious or cultural sanitization. He didn't like the Star Wars movies, and he didn't like the Superman movie, and he conflated Spirits Having Flown with these movies as pieces of media that, quote, exalts a blind faith in technology, flaunting the artificiality while exhorting our wildest childhood fantasies of escape into Toyland. Which is just weird. That's a weird sentence to read. Don't understand his point. Like, I think that maybe, because before they focused more on like guitar and bass and piano, like they were just pretty stripped down as far as their instrumentation goes, and maybe that's what he's talking about, the amount of synth use in this album, but it's not that bad. They use just as many violins as other disco songs, and he loved the Saturday Night Fever music, loved it, and he felt like this album, Spirits Having Flown, was just horrible. Maybe he felt the content of the song didn't make sense, I'm not sure. It was really weird to read, and he said these kinds of things, like that kind of sentence, exhorting our wildest childhood fantasies of escape into Toyland. He made that kind of a sentence way too many times. He also mentions that the Bee Gees were trying to copy the Beatles in their earlier work, and I'm not sure why. As far as I can tell, the main thing that makes the Bee Gees and the Beatles similar is their name both starts with the letter B's and B and E, and they're both British. Apparently, when they went to England, they had the same Beatles manager. And Barry even said in this interview that he thinks that manager wanted them to be confused for the Beatles. He released some music anonymously in America, didn't say who the artist was that made the song. Barry felt that the goal of doing that was to confuse people, make them think the Beatles had just released a song and actually it's the Bee Gees. So that is another reason why people thought the Bee Gees were trying to become the Beatles. Regardless of what he says, this album has been very impactful in my life. I mentioned earlier about the sampling and stuff like that. It's been my favorite research project. I've loved getting into dive deep and to learn more about this record. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a great night. Too Much Heaven. This is such a train wreck. Too Much Heaven. It also features This album has been very impactful in my life. And they even got their, and that's, oh man. Living Together by the Bee Gees is the group. Wasn't a good representation. Saturday Night Fever, one Inside and Out. Holy crap, that's not even the right song. Oh my god. Okay.